Are on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Contributor Experience. My name is Paris. Today is Wednesday, September 12th. It is 9:35 a.m. in the Pacific time, and we have a wonderful plethora of contributors with us in multiple time zones today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. So we do have a note taker. Elsie just did that, and then I'm going to be assigning Christoph the co-host duties. Thanks, Christoph. And then that is set. All right, and then I'm going to fix our in-share screen settings really quickly. And then done that. All right, and then welcome. First things first, we do have a code of conduct that we abide by that is under the CNCF umbrella. The TLDR there is please be excellent to each other. Also, if you do have something to say, just raise your hand if somebody's in the middle of speaking and one of us will see it. I have everybody's pretty avatars and faces on my screen right now, so I should be able to see you with your hands up. And then second thing now, do we have any new contributors on the line that have never been on this call before that would like to introduce themselves? And I think I see most of our regular folks. Zach Puckett, I don't believe I have seen you in here before. If you'd like to introduce yourself, feel free. If not, don't worry. We can always come back to that, or again, don't feel free to introduce yourself. Next, we have the office hours community meeting and meet our contributors, kind of check in to make sure everything's good there. I think Arun is doing the community meeting tomorrow. George is at an offsite this week. Jeff, you're doing the live stream, correct? All right, everything's good with you? All right. It sounds like everything was good with Arun when I checked with him. He's not on the call right now, so we're good there. Office hours is next week. Jeff, you're also going to be a part of that too, right? Bob, you as well. Do you know if George needs anything for office hours?
I think he'll be back, so we should be fine. Okay, but cool. If not, I can stream that as well. So okay, cool. Not too worried.
All right. And then meet our contributors. We're really good with meet our contributors right now, but if anybody on the call would ever like to attend, come on, feel free. We have like 1 or 2 slots available for most times, and that happens again on the first Wednesday of every month, and that's kind of a contributor AMA. But the last month that we had, which was last week, we've already seen over 100 views on both sessions, which is scaling, and that's amazing. So I'm super happy about that. So thanks to everybody that has put time into both the community meeting, office hours, and meet our contributors. I think they're programs that we run that are really starting to be full steam ahead. All right. Oh, Zach said in chat, haven't set my mic up yet. I work with Guinevere and just listening in today. Hi, Zach. Sorry to put you on the spot, but feel free next time when you get your mic, come on in and introduce yourself.
Actually, I have my mic. He can come right over to my computer and introduce himself.
That sounds like peer pressure from your teammate, Zach.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? So nice to have you. And so good to hear that Gwen is your coworker. She will be an excellent person for you to get plugged in with. All right. So Lucas said that the project board link is not working. It works for me. I know that there's been some GitHub issues within the last couple of days with certain, I think like sites and regions and stuff going down. So could be just a temporary. Oh, it says
it was giving me issues earlier today as well.
Which assume it means there's an org member need. It should. Weird. So Lucas and folks that can't access, try to go to github.com/Kubernetes. And then from there, you should see the projects tab and it should say 1.
No, it's not a problem. I can find it. I was just saying that the link was broken some time ago, and in the meantime, somebody fixed. So.
Okay. All right. No, sorry. I've been having GitHub issues all week, so I thought maybe it was just tied to that. All right. So I have been filing my life away with issues, y'all. So if you see humongous issues flowing in, that's kind of what I've been doing. So right now I have, the only thing that we're blocked on is the communication and collaboration platform sprawl, and that we're actually not blocked anymore. We were blocked with the survey, but now that the survey has gone out, we are going back to in progress for that. Does anybody else here have any major blockers for projects that they're working on, or things like that that we can start to help unblock you? No? Oh my gosh, things are slowly flowing, and how weird. Awesome. Very cool. All right. And then there are some help wanted labels, good first issue labels in there as well. So if you hear of other new contributors that are looking to contribute outside of code, definitely feed them to us. Feed them sounds kind of weird, but feel free to have them come over to us. Some things that we're doing that's in progress right now that we should definitely talk about on this call. Things like the steering committee election. For those that don't know, we are having an election right now with the steering committee for 3 different seats that are up for grabs this year based on their term limits, and that's the current committee's term limits. This Friday is the next deadline, and that deadline is for people who would like to nominate either themselves or other people. And then also candidate bios will be starting to flow into the voter's guide as well. And then the eligible voter exception form as well. So the steering committee this year has determined that 50 contributions or more means that you are eligible to vote for the steering committee positions. There's a voter's MD file in the elections folder that's under events in the K community repo. And feel free to look up your handle there. And then if not, feel free to fill out the exception form if you feel like you've made at least 50 contributions. And yes, they do count non-contributions as well. But of course, the easiest way for us to collect metrics is through GitHub events. So that's why we have the forum, is for those times when you've contributed that just unfortunately did not generate the GitHub event. So that's pretty much the update for the election. Eeyore, did I miss anything?
I'm not sure. Probably I've got something. Everything.
All right. Is Josh Burkus on the line? I don't see him right now, but I know Gwen.
He's on vacation.
Oh, that's right. Good for Josh. Good for vacation.
I'm here. Call me Josh.
Hi, Josh Jr. I did decide to start also filing issues for all of our events. That's one of the areas that I think we really lack with issues, and people don't know what's going on a lot of the time with our events because we're just usually in little subgroups. I did not set one for Shanghai. I set one for China. However, I said in the issue that if Josh wants me to do Shanghai as well, I will. I just know that he's leading that, so I figured he might want to be the author of the issue. So feel free to, next time you talk to Josh, ask him how he wants to track the Shanghai stuff in GitHub, and if he does. And then I'm going to update that issue today for those who are interested to see what's going on with the Seattle Contributor Summit. We have definitely have a little bit more information this week. We're actually hoping, I'm crossing my fingers right now, to solidify the venue for the first day, which will be just pretty much a dinner. And then the next day will be ultimately like the big day of work, if you will. It'll be unconference talks, birds of a feather workshops, and then high level like state of type of conversations from both our maintainers as well as steering committee members. So that's kind of how the Contributor Summit is getting laid out right now. And again, that is in progress. So we don't have any blockers at this point in time.
I have a request.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to get in touch with me, I am not bothered by Slack messages. Please DM me on Slack. Especially since you brought up GitHub issues, they are great for tracking, but they're not really great for getting my attention. If you add me on there right now, I'm like, I don't know. It like release team does that to you apparently. I've been warned about this, but I didn't really believe it. But now yeah. Anyway.
Awesome. And then, Christoph, I know you have some GitHub stuff in progress on the board, and I know you also have a GitHub agenda placeholder today. Do you want to take a couple minutes and talk about all the GitHub stuff that you're working on and give a quick summary?
Yeah, there's been a whole flurry of work in progress stuff that's kind of like somewhat contribex, but also a lot of it's SIG testing as far as tidying up automation in the Kubernetes orgs. So Aaron's been kind of spearheading a lot of this. We've got this week, we got Tide running on KK instead of the submit queue, which was a huge milestone of a long time in the making. And that also opens us up to, simplify some of our configuration where by default, all Kubernetes repos in the Kubernetes org will have the same kind of tiers of automation as far as merging, signing reviewers, the approval workflow. Now that kind of KK has gone that direction, and we've wrangled the incubator and Kubernetes SIGs, we're basically at the point where all that automation should be, I would say, within the next 2 weeks, basically standard across all of our orgs, that you will have the exact same experience as far as the bots and the automation piece. Again, that's been a long time in the making. Then a lot of people have been involved in that, and huge shout out to the test infra teams in SIG testing, who have done amazing work on all these different parts and all these different kind of moving pieces to get that working. Who basically works with the process and the flow in the Kubernetes repo, as well as all the different process changes to work with the automation, and that we can have consistent automation across everything. It's been all the work, and I don't want to take any credit for the things that were like these exceptional individuals and the work that they've been putting in for years. So that's been a thing. There's been a lot of cycles kind of going into that and shoring up that. We've been, from the GitHub administration team side, as far as like the contributor experience subproject, we've been kind of humming along as far as working through the processes and the types of requests that are coming in now that they're all funneling through us, as opposed to like individual like steering committee members going and creating something ad hoc. We've kind of have an established process that if we're going to take like a GitHub administration action, such as creating a repo or changing a repo setting, we are enforcing that we want to create an issue for it, so that we're communicating internally between us and anybody who wants to watch the org repo inside of Kubernetes. They can see publicly the actions being taken, and that we can do things like follow up with documentation and policies around things that are happening. If we come across a request that doesn't have a policy or doesn't have documentation, we can mark it to get that added. So that is kind of just in the, like, we're moving along. There's been no major issues or blockers. There's still a lot to do there as far as policy and documentation and establishing things, but it's been chugging along. Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to mention here, and I added this to the agenda, the agenda item for the GitHub issue template. So in the org repo, I tried out a new GitHub feature where we can establish multiple different issue templates for different issue types. And there is, I'll throw a link in the agenda as well as what that looks like for our repo. There. I just threw it in the agenda. So there's basically a chooser that you can, when you click on the green new issue button in the repo, it's like, hey, here's some suggested templates. And when you click on one of those templates, it pre-fills out, here's the information we need from you to execute this certain type of request. And that's been working well, and that's been really helpful in the org repo that kind of acts like a pseudo ticketing system for tracking actual GitHub requests. But it's been working well for us, and Ben noticed it the other day and was like, hey, we should probably roll this out to other repos like Kubernetes. And that is a great idea. That was something that was always kind of in the long term, but never got thrown into an issue. So he made an issue to do that. And if people want to help out with that, there's been somebody who's already commented on the issue that, oh, they want to like help out and initially design those templates, but there'll be PRs and that kind of stuff. If like those issue templates, again, if they work out in KK and test infra, if there are other repos that we want to do that in, I think that's very good and very helpful to kind of direct those requests kind of into a funnel. Like, hey, if you're filing this type of request, these are the types of information we need from you. As well as we can do things like, we had on the current issue template is like, uncomment one of these for a kind bug or kind feature. We can integrate those as part of the template so that certain requests get auto-labeled into a particular bucket at the time of filing without necessitating somebody saying kind bug, kind feature, because that'll be built in as part of the template. There's a lot of interesting things that we can do there. And I think that'll be very interesting to track. If anybody cares about that, go take a look at that issue, subscribe to that issue, take a look at the subsequent PRs that are filed. Because I think that'll be cool for both Kubernetes as well as any other repos that we decide to roll this out to. I think if that works out well for Kubernetes, that's also something we should send out to SIG leads and communicate like, hey, this is a thing now that's working at least for stat flow in KK, and you should take a look at doing this for any other repos that you are accepting issues from the public on. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. I don't have cycles to drive that. If there are people who are interested in that, go take a look at that issue, because that would be very helpful to have other people involved in that kind of that wing of the contributor flow, or other end user flow as far as filing issues.
Just so I'm caught
sorry,
up.
go ahead.
This is the issue that Ben filed, yes? 68527. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Just making sure I'm on the right one.
So yeah, I think this looks great. We've been doing this at VMware. All the open source projects that we have, we've been adding GitHub issue templates to it. I put in a link to one of them where we actually use some emojis as well to spruce it up a little, make it look even more inviting. And it's a great thing. I love it because it makes it so much easier to see what type of issues we're filing. And it makes it so much easier for all the contributors when they want to do a feature proposal or a bug request or an issue. It's so much easier. I would love to help out with this.
Awesome. I mean, I can definitely help too. I think I'm in the same predicament as Christoph. I don't have any full cycles, but I have A, ideas, and B, I can definitely help. And do some of the laid work. So if you want to partner on that, and I know Gwen does as well. So I know she also doesn't have any cycles, but I think like if we get like 3 to 5 of us, we could probably get something done. So
I would love to take down your ideas. I can definitely be the note taker and pushing this forward.
Okay. Let's we can continue the chat in the the Contrib Slack channel, and then maybe we'll set an issue today and get some things going. I have some ideas, particularly around community management, and I'm sure George and Eeyore will as well, especially like the highly transactional stuff that we see, like getting a Zoom account. And I mean, like one of the issues could be like community management-esque related.
I like that.
Yeah, and then
we could do that for K community as well.
Yeah.
That like when you're filing an issue against K community, you know, hey, here's the more general ones, but if you're specifically asking for this type of thing, this is the information we need.
Exactly. Yeah, and I have so many mentoring ideas too, actually, as well, like getting the G form, and putting the G form into GitHub ultimately. So that, like when mentees and mentors are signing up, they don't actually have to do a G form. They would just do a process through GitHub's kind of like the GitHub management setup that's right now for members, but kind of mentors and mentees and stuff like that. So anyway, that's
I love that idea.
Yeah, super high level, and that's just my brain again going to the like meet the developers where they are kind of thing, instead of like having extra stuff float around and workflows. So I just set an issue actually on that on the group mentoring umbrella, I think it was just recently. So anyway, Jonas, long story short, let's get in touch. And we'll get that done. All right.
Awesome ideas. Love it.
Yes. All right. And then,
any questions for anything that I talked about? GitHub admin, automation, any of this kind of stuff?
I saw Sig Beard get on. There he is, getting off mute.
Hi. I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but since people here tend to maintain docs related to contributor experience, cherry pick requirements have mildly changed, probably for the better. Milestones are no longer required for cherry picks. If we find we want to do that, we should add that back in. There are technical reasons why apparently like milestones were necessary because of a technical way that GitHub worked, and they're not required because of the technical way that Tide works. If we want to go back to a world where milestones are required for all of these branches, we should add like new release automation stuff for that. I have an open PR where I've gotten feedback from 2 of the 3 existing patch release managers, and they're both happy with that. They're fine with it. I brought it up at SIG release yesterday, and I will bring it up here again today. I think our cherry pick process could use a lot of improving. I'm tearing down all the complex stuff that we don't really use. I would love for somebody to own building it back up into something that's more meaningful and makes sense.
I would love to be the person who owns that, but as Paris mentioned earlier, I'm not sure that I'm in a good position right now time-wise. Right. But I'm working on some documentation, so I'll definitely connect with you on keeping that updated.
Cool. If you find somebody else who might be interested and has capacity, please let them know.
Yeah, I'll make sure to keep my eyes open. And like I said, I'm definitely personally interested. I'm having changes coming up this month. So
yes, I'm personally interested in way too many things for my own good, as I'm sure some people here will attest. But yeah. Other than that, I trust Christoph covered everything.
Aaron, read the last thing that you just said about helping out. Do you have an issue open for that? And or can I help you open an issue to smack the help wanted label on it?
I do have an issue. I will follow up with you offline.
Awesome.
It's not quite help. I don't, I'll take a look. I thought help wanted still needed to be somewhat spelled out for somebody. This requires a fair amount of ownership.
So
I think help wanted is really more an issue of educating SIGs that it doesn't mean, hey, help me with this. It means this is a good first issue. No, wait, sorry.
Right, we have the good first issue now, so I'm kind of slightly unclear on exactly how strict the requirements should be for help wanted. I know the docs have changed. I haven't looked at them lately, so that's why I'll just follow up with Paris offline. We'll get it done.
Yeah, Carolyn and Nikita were working on that.
Yeah, so, I thought from my understanding of the docs, it's good first issue is if you need guidance and hand holding, and then help wanted is I need help. However, I'll give you an overview I'm not going to like let you go out into the wild, but I'll give you an overview, but I'm not going to hold your hand. Which I think is appropriate for pretty much any issue, because if somebody's talking to you, if somebody wants to work on something, they shouldn't necessarily work on it blind anyway. I mean, they should at least get an overview of where you are with the issue. At least that's what I understand from the docs.
Yeah, that's consistent with my understanding too. The last time, I don't think we have any open issues about changing those definitions. I think we're kind of locked in as far as what we have right now. And yeah, help wanted is basically, there's a commitment there. Like if you apply help wanted, you're at least going to handhold enough to be, hey, this is kind of, you understand what to do and where to go and who to ask for questions. We're going to give you that much guidance. Good first issue needs to be like 95% plus completely spelled out what we need you to do. You can kind of go do that on your own without needing a whole bunch of hand-holding, because it's already spelled out very clearly what we want to do directionally. Help wanted isn't even like, we can have like a little bit of flexibility there as far as even deciding direction, but at least if we have like a general idea of where we want to go, what needs to be learned, what needs to be decided, then it's okay for help wanted.
I've actually had some good success lately with both labels, so I feel like just from those definitions that we just discussed, I think we're really good. Like the good first issue sent me someone that doesn't really contribute to Kubernetes. And then the help wanted has sent me current contributors that are looking for projects. However, they needed to be filled in with like the overview and the context. But all right. Christoph, for GitHub, I guess Aaron as well, is there anything that anybody on this call could help you with outside of what Aaron just mentioned with documentation?
Anytime anybody asks for something, the standard response should be file an issue on Kubernetes/org. Full stop. And Christoph did a good job of explaining why in channel scroll back. I saw that exchange.
Okay, cool. So the 3 issues that we have right now in progress for GitHub is clean up GitHub service accounts, GitHub permissions, the RFC for GitHub team structure. Is there any other issues that we can file under in progress, or is there any issues there that we can file under blocked and or completed?
I think there's a number of like, hey, here's a gap in policy or a gap in documentation that we've identified, and we need to go and create policy or create documentation. I think there's a number of those that, like Aaron, myself, and other people involved with it have indicated, but we just haven't filed issues. And I know I haven't filed issues for them yet. That is something that I can definitely go and do. So we can either mark them as help wanted or like note that they're something in progress that we are working on internally.
Well, all right. Well,
I would say, tactically speaking, maybe the next thing I see for Christoph, myself, and other members of the admin team is to stop inviting people manually and start inviting people with our tool. The reason we had held off on that was because Feta was literally on the other side of the planet. He's back now, but I'm about to drop off into a black hole. So I think we'll look to do that next week and accelerate our stuff. And I'm kind of curious to see if we can take a look at how our response times have been to new membership requests. I've seen a couple people file new membership or like new member requests and then do nothing with 0 sponsors. And we'll probably want to find a way to be polite, but triage those appropriately.
Awesome. All right, so we are officially closing the book on GitHub related management stuff for this call. I'm going through the backlog right now, and we've got some really, really old stuff in here, and I wanted to see if anyone had any updates. I know some of the folks on these are on the call right now. Aaron, you have removed direct write access to this repo. Where's that right now? It looks like it's in you have a life cycle frozen on it.
Right. So the largest thing that is blocking that is a non-trivial. It's a boulder. It's not a pebble. It's how do we make our release notes process work such that contributors don't feel the need to go through and, or I guess I should say, like, maintainers or people who've been around a while don't feel the need to go through and edit other people's PR descriptions, edit other PRs, uh, people's PR titles, and so on, just to get the release notes to look right. That's kind of the biggest blocker. There are also a couple nits in the description about how, like, somebody would have to physically touch the repo to create a new milestone. So this isn't adding a milestone to a label, but saying, I want to make the V114 milestone so we can start stuffing issues into it. The release note thing is the big, big hurdle. I thought I saw something from Nikita about attempting to improve that process somewhat, but I view that as like a quarter length thing, unless somebody is willing to go and try and suggest a compromise or find a way to reduce the set of people who feel compelled to edit PR descriptions for cleaner release notes. I personally haven't kept track of how the release note process has been going through this ongoing release, but like I would love to hear feedback from those folks about what could be done to improve the process. So we can get that done. Very, very, very few people need direct write access to Kubernetes. And then I think that probably folds into the broader policy thing that Christoph and I need to write up, is our preference to have as few people as possible have direct write access to repos. So yeah, that is still open and frozen for those reasons. And I think that is reflected in the description of I try to sort of cross out things as they're done in the description of that issue.
Yeah, I saw that. You don't have yourself assigned. I feel like that's for a reason.
I'm not actively working it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not assigned.
Okay. All right. And then, well, speaking of the release notes, there's also a super old one in here as well from Eric Paris. Like it seems like 40 years ago, but that's really not the case. It is rename release note and cherry pick labels to conform the category/subcategory norm. I feel like this has already been addressed.
No, it hasn't. So we'd love to be able, like the release note labels, like almost every label that we use to do stuff has a prefix/suffix. And release notes are the exceptions to that. We have like release note -none, release note -action required, blah, blah, blah. I would lump that into the same, we need our release note process overhaul. This isn't the sort of thing that iterating on really feels appropriate for. And that's more of a like, the labels look cleaner that way. Yay. I don't see a huge benefit to that.
Can we slap a help wanted label on this?
Sure, but again, this is the sort of thing that requires like, you need to know a lot about how the process works and be willing to go poke people, engage in lots of discussions and so on and so forth.
I feel like that's a fair description that we can put in the comment for help wanted.
Well, the other thing there that again I would caution is if you slap help wanted on there, somebody needs to have at least the time commitment to like start engaging in those conversations, even if they're not the ones actively taking the action. And I don't know, with something, the two big ones there being cherry picks and release notes, unless somebody has the time commitment to say, like, I can at least commit the time to like explain to you the state of the world and where we're going and be available to answer questions. Unless somebody's willing to put their name to that, then I don't think we're help wanted yet.
Yeah, I think I can brain dump sufficient context for the cherry pick problem. I don't think I can do that for the release note problem, even though I've been personally involved in both of those.
Okay, I'll talk to the release team and see if there's anybody that can, like maybe any of the shadows or anybody that would be willing to help out with that part. All right, well, I'll just leave this issue for another day. It's been there for a while anyway. All right. Aaron, I know you didn't put anything on the agenda. Do you have anything that you wanted to discuss outside of the GitHub stuff that you've already mentioned?
Brain no work well.
Okay. All right. And then I'm going to the backlog, and we have a lot of work to do.
Just as a thought on release notes, is it worthwhile to instead of perhaps making it one single person's issue? Is it worthwhile to try and put working group release notes together and just overhaul the whole thing with the people who've been involved?
That could be worthwhile. I think the important thing is the release notes effort needs somebody who has passion and drive to herd a whole bunch of cats with varying degrees of strong opinions that head in different directions. So make sure you anticipate the needs of those poor souls who are actually trying to put the release notes together and make some coherent sense out of them, but also the individual developers, so that we can provide as friction-free a way for them to provide the appropriate level of context, and also the technical leads who can provide some liaison between those two audiences. That's why I view it as like not an easy problem.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, you feel my thinky pain.
I was the release note shadow for 110. I know the pain, so.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But I agree. I think like having feedback from the group of people involved would be worthwhile, not just one person's strong opinion. It just needs a person to like actually get the consensus and then push us forward. That's all.
Okay.
Noah, that sounds like you. Just FYI.
There's a reason I haven't signed up for any release teams since 110. Most of it is time.
Don't worry, this isn't recorded. We won't tell anyone.
It's recorded right there.
All right. Aaron, with your steering committee hat on, the one thing that I have not been following with steering committee is working group stuff and like clarification and like requirements, specifically like the requirement of having a SIG sponsor. Has there been any clarification around that or any work done there?
No. Jace put together a proposed Google Doc, which I was going to move into pull request form and go from there, but I've been wedged behind a bunch of other things. I suspect if I put it in pull request form, many more opinions will form, so it requires attention. So if it were that's why I'm not sure I can just hand it off to you to mechanically turn into a pull request and then just shove it through. Along a similar front, I've been trying to get the steering committee to enumerate the criteria for a SIG or working group to retire, whatever you want to call it, disband, merge, sunset. And so far, that also seems to need to be queued up for discussion rather than iterated on in docs. We might get to that today. We're one person away from not having enough quorum to meet today. But I think we're pretty clear on the fact that the steering committee just wants to enumerate the why, and then we're free to let y'all move on to the details of how. I think your list there. And then on the charter front, for what it's worth, I would be happy to look over my internet connection is unstable. Hopefully you caught some of that. I would be happy to look over your charter at some point.
Cool. Speaking of charter, I just started the skeleton of the new version, so I just need to get with Christoph and Elsie and G-Rod and hammer that out so that steering committee can finally take a look at it and get that going.
Okay. It's super lightweight. We really just care about scope.
Yeah. Cool. I think the reason that I was asking about the working group stuff outside of just the SIG and working group retirement thing for like the logistics piece was that I had filed an issue a while ago to have sponsoring SIGs listed on SIG's YAML next to working groups so that people could understand a little bit better about who like they not report into is not the right word I'm looking for, but like give updates to and have liaisons with. One of the many reasons why is because the community meeting, we wanted to start having potentially working groups come in and give updates and things like that. So, and then other various community management topics and things like that. So, but if it's not a requirement that a SIG sponsors a working group, then I guess that wouldn't be needed. So
A, I don't know if that's a requirement. B, tangled up in this discussion is a strong opinion that many working groups should not actually exist. They should be temporary and disbanded. They should become sub-projects of other SIGs. But I will work, yeah, I agree with you. There are definitely some working groups that span. Also tangled up in this is the group of people who want to work on moving project infrastructure from Google over to the CNCF. What do we call those people? Is that yet another SIG? Is that a sub-project of an existing SIG? Is that a working group? Or how about a team? Or I don't even know. So trying to nail that down as well.
It sounds like a working group.
I agree. Another model that was proposed is the release team, because the release team is a group of people that like comes together and then disbands and comes together and disbands. That to me sounds like a sub-project of SIG release, and that's sort of the direction I heard Stephen Augustus taking it for their charter. But because it sounds like a working group, that brings us back to what is a working group, and can we pin down what needs to happen for it to be created, and what should its charter be, and what should its governance policies be. This one especially, because we probably don't want to have maximum representation from a single company, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the working group stuff right now, that we stuff meaning policies and whatnot, I think they're already sort of well defined with the exception of only a few areas. So that's why for me, I'm like,
show me the docs where those are well defined, or send them to me to ratify through the steering committee, and I will happily help you with that.
I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. There's areas of it that are a little ambiguous, but I mean, to me, when I read the policy, when I read the working group governance, it's pretty much like it's a temporary thing. You don't own any code, and like a SIG should, and that's where it kind of gets ambiguous. A SIG should sponsor you, kind of thing.
Right, and so that heads into the, like, sure, working groups should be temporary, but show me the number of working groups that have actually disbanded.
Right. And that's what I mean. Like, I think like if we just all the steering committee would need to do essentially is just like change some of those words, like should, and maybe insert more for clarity purposes or something like that.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, no, I think I've got a couple items on the backlog that relate to working group policy and stuff like that. So, all right. And then anybody else have anything to add for today? Discussion topics? Need opinions? No? Really? All right. Well, that's it for me. Jeez, chatty group today.
Yeah!
It's a good sign, isn't it?
Happy freaking Wednesday, okay?
Yeah, well, have a great vacation, Aaron.
I'll see you all later.
Yes. See y'all.
Later.
Have a nice day.